So good morning. Welcome to Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon, or Cole, whatever you want to refer to me as. In a good way. I don't care. I've been called everything under the sun: rat, pig, dog, dinosaur, lizard, hippo, mouse, whatever. In a good way, as I said, don't care. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Although words do hurt, and people know that, and they will use it to their advantage, because if they actually threw sticks and stones, they could get in trouble. But if people cast out words and point at you and call you a dog while there's no one else around for 5 blocks because of a blizzard, and they just keep pointing, you're not even walking a dog. Look at the dog with their kids, no less. That's how bad it is. Teach them when they're young. You know what I mean? So anyway, I had to untangle this idea of being a dog. I even had like the metaphorical idea of being a dog. It's hard to explain, but my brain had to do a lot of like detangling, because people would do things like, good girl, no barking, good girl, no barking, good girl, no barking, while they were looking at their dog and talking to me. Or, I'm sorry, they were actually they would look at my dog and then look at me. I have to picture it in my mind again, but it would be like, I would stand there like, is this Wacky Wednesday? Like, it could seem, if it were shaded a certain way, it could seem like, oh, they're just being silly, I guess. No, these people were playing mind games as if they were hired by the worst department in the CIA to really mind F people and create some sort of Philadelphia experiment, social engineering. But it gets way worse than that, ladies and gentlemen, for the circus show and the SHIT show. But here we are on day 95 of my one video each day, 365-day campaign, raising money for a life lost, stolen, robbed, tortured, raped, the whole 9 yards, into not being able to function like, in a more normal, average way. People have families, they do things. Maybe people have normal jobs, they go on vacations, what have you. And fortunately, I'm able to walk dogs to kind of keep afloat. But anyway, I wanted to get into a very serious portion of what happened. Other than the preliminary, I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment the fourth Monday of January 2011. It was an orchestrated series of events. I was trembling, shaking, convulsing. Wound up calling my sister, the police, and when I finally called my mom, and my sister was with me at this point, we get, we're sorry, the phone number you're trying to reach has been disconnected. So my mom and aunt were living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. And this thing was so orchestrated, and that should be enough proof that this was orchestrated, because it's too coincidental, don't you think? That someone was actually in Jacksonville, Florida, and creeped around my mom and aunt's house to make sure the landline phones were disconnected. The line in the back, they had to call out the phone company, and coincidentally, the phone company had to come out on the very day that I tried to reach my mom. I didn't try to reach her overnight because it was too, weird hour in the morning, like 3:30, 4:30. So I tried my sister first. Then she convinced me to call police. We live in Philly, and calling the police is almost unheard of. So kidding a little bit, but especially back then in 2010, 11, 12, so forth and so on, a lot of liberals here, and no one wants to, whatever. So I will get to, so if that weren't enough, after being made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment, the games commenced, and in a way, like, everything was surreal. I know part of this is a PTSD experience, but it got so weird. I felt like I was on the other side of a curtain watching, like, this is crazy. It got so weird that I wondered if some either very high budgeted or very low budgeted offside movie company actually was trying to create their own private movie, and figured they could get away with it because I'm really, I'm a actual regular person, clearly, not overly significant in the scheme of things. At best, I did have a college degree, and at best, I was hoping to move to the Pacific Northwest. So anyway, we'll get to the meat of this video, and that is, a lot of odd things happened physically to my body and invisibly. And this is stuff I would never like necessarily pay attention to or believe in if someone else were to tell these kinds of things. But I will tell what happened to me. I don't know what it is. And one quick thing, really quick, right away, is that in the beginning of everything happening, my bed felt like it was shaking every morning for about 2 years, and I was trying to figure out like, am I that terrified that I'm shaking? I didn't think so. I felt like the bed was shaking. I know I was terrified, but this sensation every morning, it was like as if someone put a very light hotel vibrator on my bed to make it shake every morning. So I was in the basement trying to look up. I lived in a first floor apartment in the first half of a row home, which meant I was above the basement where the water heater was. I worried about that exploding. They had people believing, in my case, I believed all kinds of crazy things could happen. Um, Eventually, laundry would be put down there. It wasn't there for the first year. So anyway, I was looking under there to see if something would cause that motion, but I didn't really see anything that would really directly cause the floor to shake, which would cause my. So anyway, that's actually a big thing. But we'll move on to the other things, which directly had my body in a weird state of affairs. So my mom and aunt would move from Jacksonville, Florida to Gainesville, Florida during 2011. Flash forward to 2018, I would wind up leaving Philadelphia, moving there, and some supernatural-ish things happened that it kind of freaked me out. One was that every morning, once I moved there, I slept on a couch in their living room, and every single morning for a year, and this is an actual truth and fact, my eyelids wouldn't open naturally. When we wake up in the morning, our eyelids just sort of flutter open, or they're open. I don't even think about it. But I realized like I was awake and couldn't open my eyes, and I actually spent the first year and a half like this became normal. I will have to pry my eyes open. So I don't know what that is. My brain sort of started to accept it as just like a normal thing. But I do know I saw a video about Katy Perry going around on TikTok, and she is in the music business and a very high level, income earner for that world. And there's a video where her right eye keeps like shut like a doll, and it would go down and up, down and up, down and up, just like an old fashioned doll where the eyes move inside the head. They tried to play it off on a talk show of she knows how to do this eye trick. I No offense to her because I love her roar, at all the female empowered videos and songs that she puts out. I love Katy Perry, but I saw something, and it is people who are heavily controlled in certain worlds to the point that someone else kept making her eyes stick. And for a second, you could think, well, is it so much mascara and like the fake eyelashes? Are they sticking? Or is her eye really heavy? No. Someone else can do that, or something else, some other construct in which people exist to heavily control certain people for whatever reason. In my case, I don't have, $50 million. I'm not, so, but in my case, I saw it as a death threat because I had to open both eyes every single morning. It eventually wore off. I know it was at least a year because it's like it just became the norm. Also, I experienced like this weird vertigo thing where I couldn't. There was a morning when I wanted to get up off the couch. I would get up very early because my aunt liked to feed the cats and come in and do her crossword puzzle and coffee. So I would get up and go out to Starbucks and sit there and try to find work or whatever. So I would get up at like 5:30 in the morning. There was a morning when it was as if there was a ceiling or some sort of something holding me down, and I couldn't get up from the couch. And I was like, that's weird. I can't actually sit up. So somewhere in my brain, or a voice from the sky actually said, just stay here for, just keep, laying here as if you were asleep for another like hour and a half till like 6:30, 7. It'll wear off. It did wear off, but I was very cautious and nervous because that freaked me out that I couldn't actually sit up. As if there was an invisible piece of glass or board keeping me down. And I even called my dad that day. This is 2020, I believe, because I think I started with shift, which is why I never got down I called my dad and was like, for some reason, I felt really compelled to visit. And I wondered, like, okay, if I went down there and visited, maybe it'll make me feel better. I think I was worried about everybody. Um, and it might have been, I don't know if there were a couple days where I was waiting for Shipt to start, because when you get a job with a food delivery company like Shipt, you have to wait for all the materials to come, and they say it'll take about 7 to 10 days before materials will show up and you can start doing your shopping. I kind of forget how it worked, or before they get you all into the system or whatever. I'm trying to remember why I figured I would go down. Um, but anyway, I think I was so scared, but I called, and he and his second wife of many years, had a bunch of appointments, and it just didn't seem likely for him. So he's like, how about next week? But by then, all the Shipt stuff kicked in. And as soon as I started earning money for Shipt, that was it. I was scared to be homeless. I didn't like having to live with my mom and aunt. Obviously, most people want to be independent. And I worked from sunup to sundown as much as possible that you could work, constant, 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 and never got down to visit my dad. And he would end up passing away at the end of 2020, December 2020, of coronavirus. So that's a whole other thing, because it can start to get really weird. But that brings me to another point. While living in Turkey Creek Forest in Gainesville, Florida, even the tree arbiters or arborators or whatever they're called, the people who come down the tree removal service, they also trim branches. But in Florida, there's a million of these tree people. It is a right-wing state, but anyway, and it's, natural state where there's a lot of heat and I guess growth of stuff. But I guess like a day or two, like right when my dad went into the hospital finally, after like thinking maybe the symptoms wouldn't develop as much as they would. Once he went in, just on the other cul-de-sac, on the other side of the street, from like across from my mom, and on the other side of these trailers that were across the street, it got really eerie. Like it was like almost timed for me when I came out to my car, and I could hear like zzz, and somehow, and it was actually the fall of the tree, like timber, and this hat is free. It's a timberland, but I'm daringly wearing it to sort of, stick it to people, but a little bit. And I also like the hats, but I'm not going to buy into everything. But the tree service made me feel like there are people, as if it were a Holocaust or a very sick mind F. If someone knew that a bunch of people were passing away or being killed off by the universe, it was like timber, and technically he would carry the Cole name. So that tree fell and landed about, I feel like it was like 24 hours before my dad passed away. So that was scary and weird. Also, the microwave is an issue always. When I moved to Philadelphia, I started to realize that if I were to buy a microwave or use a microwave that's already available in an apartment, it would break down within a week or two of me trying to use it. So I gave up using microwaves. I actually became a raw vegan foodie. And it would be incredibly rare that I would use a microwave. And in my mom and aunt's house, the microwave would have a mind of its own. It would work one day, and then all of a sudden it would decide not to work. And my mom would be upset because she would be afraid she broke the microwave, because it really wasn't, no one had a lot of money to go out buying new microwaves or anything like that. So she would worry about this being it's my mom's home or my aunt's home, even though my mom did pay a lot. That's a whole other topic. But just prior to her going to the hospital, the glass plate there's a glass round plate that was in the microwave that was in the house that my aunt technically had her name on. And somehow it broke. I don't know if my mom dropped it, or I kind of forget what the story was. My mom kept thinking that you needed the glass plate in order to operate the microwave. That's not true. You can kind of remove that little spinner thing with the wheels. I know I've done this before. You can just place food in there and still heat it up, but it would be, it wouldn't be perfect like it was on the round thing. But anyway, she was really worried. They kept talking about getting a new piece. But shortly before my mom would wind up in the hospital, no one was using the microwave, but that it was kind of odd that it would work sometimes, not work sometimes. It became like a short circuit city in that little house. And when my mom was in hospice care, um, there was a day, like a couple days before she would pass away, when the entire generator of the entire cul-de-sac went out. And it's almost like the movie The Others, when everyone takes it as a sign, like, oh, and everyone kind of knows death is looming or something like that. I happened to be in the bathroom, and when the lights went out, I mean, it was completely dark. And it's this thing of, I'm glad I wasn't in the shower because it would have freaked me out a little bit more. Um, but anyway, let's see. I guess I'll leave it at that. There are many other things that happened, but I don't want to keep going on and on with this video. There's a lot of harassment in my case, as if like whistleblower harassment around the city, which eventually sent me here. I was kind of trapped, and I say good argument for human trafficked, through dog walking. I couldn't really escape. I kept trying. I couldn't figure out a way to get out. But anyway, I will wind it down here. I have a dog walk to do in a few minutes. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. And, hopefully everyone's eyes open every single morning. It's very scary, very bizarre. And how do you undo it? Whatever the negative stuff is. So thank you so much. And it is day 95. Thank you.